Life with Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins, life without one of them, and which one has a better chance of happening. We're going to break it all down.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here, Tuesday edition of the show. Oh, man, there's so much to talk about. Heading into Week 8, we're getting closer and closer to going cross-country to Minnesota for the Cardinals. Week 8 matchup against the 5-1, fresh off the bye, Minnesota Vikings. New regime at head coach. Same 3 stars. 2 stars, 2.5 stars, 3 stars. I mean, you could say, Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook are stars. Adam Thielen, a little bit older, he's like half a star. And Kirk Cousins is like half a star, I guess. So 3 full stars. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit a like on this video. Subscribe, turn the notifications on so you know whenever I'm posting. I'll be doing the halftime show per usual on Sunday at halftime of the Cardinals-Vikings game, and then the post-game quick reaction podcast that acts as Monday's podcast. I tweeted out something yesterday, and I said I am 100% convinced, irrational or not, that the Cardinals need to retain both Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins moving forward. I know that means probably the ballpark of $40 million to the wide receiver position just with those two, and I don't care. It's not the argument like, oh, it's not my money, make it work. That's not the argument here. Under the salary cap, I think $40 million a year would be properly given to Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins. Now, in this podcast, I'm going to discuss what it's going to look like if that were to happen, what it's going to look like if it won't happen, and if they only retain one, and which one is best for the future of this team. And I'm going to answer the last one now. Keeping them both is. And the Arizona Cardinals, as currently constructed, aren't a traditional organization. They've got a head coach who, although has been the head coach on paper of a team that's won more games every year than the last since he's taken over, there's some question marks surrounding him. Hollywood Brown traded for a first-round pick when the Cardinals clearly had other needs, offensive line, edge rush, corner, to name a couple. But this is where we are. These are the employees of whom the Arizona Cardinals employ. And we need to look at exactly what's at hand and not compare it to, any other teams, that may have more balanced, assets, more balanced star employees across the landscape of their entire roster. We just need to talk about the Arizona Cardinals and who the Cardinals have on their roster. So let's start with the defensive side of the ball, and I'm going to do this on purpose, okay? They've got a lot of young players with inexpensive contracts right now. Okay. Byron Murphy, we're going to leave him out because he's going to deserve a contract at the end of the year, and it's not going to be cheap for the Cardinals. Isaiah Simmons, he's got 1 year left on his deal. Zayvon Collins has 2 years left on his deal, barring anything, anything crazy where he has a crazy year next year and then holds out or something and wants to get paid before his contract is up. And then Zach Allen is a guy that is going to get a contract extension, but it's not going to be world beater money that Byron Murphy's most likely will be approaching. And then Jalen Thompson just got a contract extension. So the defense is pretty inexpensive. The offense isn't. So with Rodney Hudson, who knows what's going to happen after this year with him? TJ Humphrey's got a contract extension. Kelvin Beachum has been one of the better team-friendly contracts since he's come over in free agency. James Conner's gotten paid. Zach Ertz has gotten paid. Everybody else aside from Kyler Murray, pretty inexpensive. Rondale Moore, any of the other offensive linemen, very team friendly. Benjamin, Darrell Williams, Keontae Ingram. This is what happens when you can draft people who play football in the NFL after you draft them. It's team-friendly contracts for at least the first handful of years. So when you bring DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown into this, just think about this for a second. Them both on the field. Just think about that for a second. Just think about that. How amazing that could be. And I talked about this yesterday, and I'm going to talk about it briefly before I put a pin in this, take a break, and then continue this conversation about what it would look like and how it could happen. The timing of this needs to be pretty immaculate this year for us to be able to see with some sort of impact what these two can bring on the field together. Because Hollywood Brown, out 4 weeks at least. Looking like 6. Mid-December. Cardinals in flux with if they're going to be able to hang until then to be in the conversation for a playoff spot. Because the further behind they drop, if they do, the more questions come into play, like which expensive employees are they going to trade? Who can they get cap relief from and get draft picks for before the trade deadline? So the worst case scenario, let's start with that, and then we can talk about the fun stuff next. The worst case scenario is the Cardinals lose 4 or 5 games in a row, 3 games in a row, whatever. They go a few games under 500. Playoffs are out of reach. Hollywood Brown is coming back in mid-December, but it's too late at that point. They trade Zach Ertz. They trade J.J. Watt. They trade DeAndre Hopkins. Like, you look at the big contract guys, like, who can they unload? I don't like that, but like, who can they get cap relief from by trading and getting some draft assets in return? That's the worst case scenario, is blow it up. The best case scenario is they stay there, they chill, treading water, staying around 500, game over 500, maybe 2 games over 500, and then Hollywood Brown comes back, and then it's to the moon. That's the ideal scenario, is that it's to the moon when Hollywood Brown comes back, because then you can see what would arguably be, I can't say top, I can't say best, because I feel like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. Like 1-2 where the 2 really holds weight. Like, you can't say Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson or Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee, because that's 90% Cooper Kupp. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, they're never healthy at the same time. So you can really pull them down from those rankings. There are very few solid 1-2 top-tier punch wide receivers in the NFL. And the Cardinals would have that with DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown moving forward. I'm going to talk about what it's going to look like, what's probably going to have to happen for it to happen, and how sweet it'll be to experience if they do both get retained by the Arizona Cardinals. I will talk about all of that. So much goodness here on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. That's all next. And I'm telling you what, I'm pretty excited to talk about it, because this is the good stuff. Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. I've been through therapy pretty much, since I was 8, on and off. I get stuck focusing on problems instead of solutions all the time still. It's a constant work in progress. It just is. It can be tough to train your brain to stay in problem-solving mode when faced with a challenge in life. But when you learn how to find your own solutions, there's no better feeling. And a therapist can help you become a better problem solver, making it easier to accomplish your goals, no matter how big or small. I struggled with work ethic, dealing with anger issues and stuff growing up. It's just not anger like anger management, but I was just up and down with stuff. Life's hard sometimes. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online. Get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey, and switch therapists at any time. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. And job-wise, it's hard to find jobs sometimes, and it's harder even to do at times is to find people to work for you if you have a job opening. These days, every new potential hire feels like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain you can have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. So come up with a job post, then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions that used to give me problems so here's the thing. I'm going to go a little off. The screening questions on LinkedIn are legit. The people vocalize their answer, they record their answer, and you can listen back and see if a person will be able to fit, that problem-solving issue or that skill set to what you're looking for. It's a huge screening process for LinkedIn, and it works very well. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So it's fascinating to think about what this team will look like after the season. I know we're smack dab in the middle, but the reason why the Hollywood Brown conversation has piqued my interest so soon, so early in his tenure here as an Arizona Cardinal is just like them coming back this season and playing on the field together, it's all about timing. And it's about some performance, a lot of performance actually, and what the future is going to hold. Because for those who don't know, Hollywood Brown shares an agent with A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, and Deebo Samuel, all three of whom did not play out the extent of their rookie scale contract without getting a contract extension. They never made it to the option year. They all got extensions this offseason, actually. So if Hollywood Brown continues to play the way that he did through the first 6 weeks, say he comes back in 5 weeks, has another 5 solid weeks of 8 catches, 90 yards, touchdowns, things like that, he's not going to play, in my opinion. He's not going to play the final year of his rookie scale contract. He's going to want an extension before that. And that's the situation here that kind of puts all of this in flux. Because DeAndre Hopkins has an out after this season. Okay? As it currently sits, he will have a cap hit of $30.7 million in 2023. Well, what about the dead cap? What if they could trade him, maybe something like that? The dead cap would be $22 million. Okay, so it's not that far off. Sure, it's maybe one serviceable veteran for a 2-year contract or 2 serviceable veterans for 1 each, but this is only doable in 2 ways. 1, Hollywood Brown plays out the last year of his rookie scale contract. That's the easiest way. From what we've seen trends-wise, ain't going to happen. From what we've seen trends-wise, it ain't going to happen. Just because his agent is an absolute wizard and master of, so smart. I mean, it's genius. It's absolute genius. If he wants to win and wants to stay here long term, maybe you have a handshake deal or you backload the extension where it lowers the cap hit. You transition some of the money into a signing bonus in 2023, which allows for a little bit more cap flexibility for the team. Part of that being shimmying DeAndre Hopkins in there with what you'd think would be a restructured contract. Now, this is a lot of what ifs. This is a lot of fluidity, but I've looked into this and it's like any teams make this happen all the time. Is that a way, is that a reason why the Cardinals can miraculously make it happen? No, but teams make this happen all the time. Okay. They make things they want to happen all the time when it comes to retaining top tier talent. So the 2 easiest ways would be one, as I mentioned, Hollywood Brown playing out his the fifth year of his contract with like a handshake Jermaine Gresham deal that Steve Keim did, and then he gave him a whole bunch of cheese because he played for a couple $1 million 1 year to make it easier on them. And then DeAndre Hopkins can play out, they'll have him opt in and they'll play it out the way it's currently constructed. Or number two is Hollywood Brown gets a contract extension and they restructure DeAndre Hopkins at some dummy years at the end if DeAndre Hopkins would agree to that, and you retain them both. Or the best case of all best case scenarios, I'm just throwing this in there because it's an option, because it's, we live on planet Earth and there are options that you think won't happen, but you talk about it just because it's an actual option to happen. Hollywood Brown plays out his 5th year. DeAndre Hopkins restructures, and then you can add a whole bunch of cheese for 2023 for other necessary spots. Which do I think has the best chance of happening? Hollywood Brown getting paid and DeAndre Hopkins restructured. I feel like that because DeAndre Hopkins has made money. Hollywood Brown hasn't. DeAndre Hopkins seems to like it here. He seems to like to be here. I don't think that he's a journeyman type. Like, I don't think that he's a guy that will be a hired gun later in his career, like some receivers. I think that the target share is here. The target share is here. He's going to get a lot of looks, even with Hollywood Brown on the field. So it looks like if this is home for DeAndre Hopkins, and if this is where Hollywood Brown wants to be, they are on opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to contractual drive. Hollywood Brown's is going to be money. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be money and fit. Once you bring fit into a contract negotiation, the team has a little bit more leverage, at least in an effort to restructure, to be able to give him a little bit more money that he wants, but make it cap friendly, at least front loading it to where the Cardinals can be in cap hell later, because Cardinals are going to be in cap hell when Kyler Murray's cap hits. So this is going to be a lot of moving pieces, but there's going to need to be some buy-in from both Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins if they both want to remain Arizona Cardinals for long term. And I do believe that both of these guys are going to want to play together. Instead of wanting 15 targets each a game, they'll take 9 each and play on a winning offense. At least you'd think this offense could be winning on paper. What do I think will happen? Better, worse, indifferent? I tell it like it is. Here, Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. I'm going to talk about what I predict will happen when it comes to Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins. Hollywood Brown, no DeAndre Hopkins. No Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins. I'll talk about it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. First, I get to talk about PrizePicks. Super excited about this. PrizePicks makes daily fantasy super easy. And it's not normal DFS. It's simpler. It's quicker, and you're not competing against anybody but prize projections numbers. So you pick 2 to 5 players, and you guess whether they're going to score more or less than the PrizePicks projections, and you can win up to 10 times your money on one bet. Go to PrizePicks.com, download the PrizePicks app, and it's super simple, super streamlined. You can make these bets in 60 seconds, man. Like, seriously, on Sunday, Kirk Cousins, 250 yards, more or less, more. Kyler Murray, 245 yards passing, more or less, more. You parlay them, you bet, you win you win a couple times your money, bingo, bango, bongo, you're in the money. PrizePicks makes it super easy. It's operational in 30 states and in Canada. Go to PrizePicks.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON, and you could get 100% deposit match on your first deposit. So you deposit $100, you get 100. Deposit 50, you get 50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match of $100. And also, like I like to do a couple times a week, I get to talk about a local sponsor here. If you live in a sunny state like ours, it's very likely that you have had a few people stop by offering you free solar. The truth is that many of these companies aren't local, and because of that, they're using misleading tactics and end up overcharging homeowners. If you considered solar but something felt off, you're going to like today's sponsor, My Solar Nerd. Their mission is simple: help you get the best solar system to fit your needs. The guys at mysolarnerd.com are local and understand the nuances of going solar in Arizona. They've been doing it for a while and understand that an educated customer is a happy customer. Their no-pressure approach will make sure all your questions get answered. Once you're ready, they'll put up their industry knowledge to work for you by choosing the best equipment, warranties, and Better Business Bureau accredited installers. They'll help you figure out all the credits and incentives you may qualify for, and they'll make sure your transition to solar is as smooth as possible by managing the entire project for you and keeping you updated along the way. Our listeners will get a $50 Amazon gift card when they book a no-commitment evaluation. This promotion is only for our listeners that are homeowners, so keep that in mind. Visit mysolarnerd.com and select Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us section. Make the switch to solar on your terms. Start your research process by visiting mysolarnerd.com today and show Locked On some love by letting them know we sent you. Folks, going solar doesn't need to be complicated. mysolarnerd.com makes it easy. All right. Here's the thing. DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown. DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown. DeAndre Hopkins without Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown without DeAndre Hopkins. Ideally, you'd like both. Ideally, you'd like to see DeAndre Hopkins continue his top-tier talent level and couple that with the blazing speed of Hollywood Brown. And Rondale Moore for that matter. But I mean, we're talking about just these two. The timing is going to be very fragile. The ecosystem will be very fragile because both of these players are going to want money for different reasons. As I mentioned, Hollywood Brown hasn't gotten paid yet. DeAndre Hopkins wants to get paid, but fit is also important. What do I think will happen? And this is difficult because this means I'm instilling my trust in Steve Keim to pull this off. I think that they're going to be able to retain both. And retain is tough for Hollywood Brown. They're going to re-sign him. Okay? They wouldn't trade for a first-round pick if he didn't know. I think somebody reached out to me on Twitter and said, well, Steve Keim said that he exercised the fifth-year option, so that means that Hollywood Brown knows that he's going to be playing on the... No. Obviously, you're going to say you exercise the fifth-year option, and then you figure out the contract extension later. Like, I don't think Hollywood Brown got traded here not to get paid next season. So I think that they're going to figure it out. I think DeAndre Hopkins will want to stay here, and I think that he will restructure. So ideally, like in a vacuum, perfect world, Hollywood Brown gets his extension. They backloaded a little bit, so they have some cap room for 2023 to build out the roster. DeAndre Hopkins, they can knock down that $30 million cap number for 2023 by restructuring, maybe adding some dummy years, depending on what DeAndre Hopkins is comfortable with. And that gives the Cardinals not only their two best receivers locked up for long term or longer term than what we have right now, and a nest egg to be able to build out the roster. That's the ideal scenario. And, Kyler Murray's money is going to hit and it's going to be brutal. And this goes without saying, like, I'm not going to talk about this now. I might put a cherry on top of this, talking about how Steve Keim needs to draft well if they're going to retain both these guys. Otherwise, it's going to be a disaster for the Cardinals, regardless of how good their offense is. I'll talk about that tomorrow. I think that Hollywood Brown, after being in Baltimore and understanding that, yes, not all wide receiver ones are created equal because the defenses are completely, the offensive schemes are completely different. In Arizona, it's fun here. I'm sure he had fun in Baltimore too, but it's fun here. Okay? DeAndre Hopkins, I think he enjoys it here because he's the big dog for sure. But I think that he's not so vain to where he wouldn't mind sharing the spotlight and making his job easier, because his job will be easier if he's playing on the field with Hollywood Brown. So I think that he'll be flexible, get the money that he deserves, but not all in a 2-year shot like it is currently constructed. Maybe add a little bit more, maybe add 10 or 12 million more and add a year, just dump that cap number down a little bit. And also, all the while, allowing the Cardinals to build out this roster. Because regardless of what it looks like now, regardless of the peaks that we've seen from both sides, there's a lot of work to be done on this roster, and it needs money to do it. You can't just do it through the draft. Options. Extend Hollywood. Let DeAndre Hopkins go. Exercise fifth-year option for Hollywood. Keep DeAndre Hopkins' contract as is. Or figure out a way in the middle to make both of these very, very talented men happy. Keep them both, all the while building out the roster. That is the Xanadu heavenly scenario. And we'll see how it plays out. First things first, though. The Cardinals have to stay relevant until Hollywood Brown gets back, because a fire sale, it's not imminent. It's probably not going to happen. And it could happen if things don't go at least somewhat according to how the Cardinals want it to go. It's just a brutal truth of the NFL. Let's just hope that doesn't happen, and we could be talking this time next year about how DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown are going to be dual 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown receivers as the Cardinals ride over to the sunset with one of the best offenses in the NFL. Alex Lindsay, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for hanging out. I will talk to you tomorrow.